Planescape Torment, the Unofficial audio series. A narrative let's play adapted and produced by RevocerGM, combining in-game audio with additional voice acting through dialogue and descriptions to improve your listening experience. Rediscover the amazing story of the 1999 cult classic isometric video game, Planescape Torment, like you've never heard before. You step out into the much cooler Sigil air, and the stench of alcohol and burning hair is replaced by stagnant water and the acrid tang of corroded metal. The little light you can see through the dominating clouds is bleeding into a bruised and angry pink. You lost track of how long you'd spent in the bar, but you'd guess you're 5 or 6 hours past peak, and night is crawling in. Dakon, what is your will? The way he says the words makes you feel uncomfortable. You feel they carry a burden with them that you cannot explain. My will is that we would speak with one another. I have some questions. I will hear you. Do you know of a man named Farad? That one is not known to me. What is it that you seek from him? He may know something of my past. Things I now have forgotten. I've lost my journal. Do you know where I might find such a thing? The location of such a thing is not known to me. Never mind. Let's move on.
Please! Someone! My sister!
Suddenly, a woman charges through the street in a wild panic.
I beg you, help! Someone, please!
Her hair is in disarray, and the bodice of her dress is torn. She looks about in desperation, and noticing you, runs up and grabs your arm. You see bloodstains around the hem of her skirt.
Help me, Cutter! Please! They're killing my sister!
She begins tugging on your arm.
Who?
She looks around wildly.
This drunken man who followed us from one of the taverns. We thought he meant no harm. Please, Cutter, there's no more time. Help us!
I'll help you. Take me to her. A look of relief washes over her face.
This way, Cutter.
She frantically leads you by your arm. Maud is following right behind. You notice Dakon drop back and out of sight.
Quickly! They're not far!
She drags you into the alley behind the Smoldering Corpse Bar. Your eyes dart about, and you find nothing. No one.
Sorry, Cutter. I had no choice.
The young woman suddenly slips behind you and sprints out of the alley. Just as you're about to follow, 2 figures emerge from the shadows. You look to the exit, and another steps into the path, blocking your escape.
I love it when you clueless come to the hive.
His tall frame and long pointed ears strike an angular silhouette.
Your light hearts are so trusting, and your heavy pockets so rewarding.
Before he can finish his sentence, a bright blade sprouts from his clavicle, and he slumps messily into the wet dirt, revealing Dakon behind him. The glaive and his own pointed ears casting a wicked shadow.
What? Boss?
Bewildered, the 2 behind you lurch from the shadows. This wasn't what they'd planned, however, and they pose little threat to the 3 of you combined. As Dakon cleans his blade, like carrion birds, you rummage through the bloodied pockets and find little more than a few commons and a dull bronze bracelet. The scent of blood, however, draws in all sorts of scavengers. Just as you begin to take pride in your victory, several imposing figures darken the entrance to the alley once again. You look to Maud, whose eyes are wide with panic. There must be half a dozen at least. You hear Dakon utter some quiet words in preparation, and suddenly his glaive gleams with a mystical light, shedding a faint golden glow about his frame. He looks up to the encroaching force, his eyes a slate grey matching the colour of his blade. You swear you see its edge distort into tooth-like serrations. Dakon's movements are a blur, holding back several of them at once. The first attack falls almost in an instant. One, however, ignores him and charges straight towards you, tackling you to the ground. Maud latches onto his neck, biting into his plumed shoulders, but is immediately cast off, clashing against the alley wall. A rusted hatchet comes swinging down to your face, but you grab him at the wrist and thrust your dagger into his hip. He rolls away in agony, raking his talons along the side of your ribs and gouges his hatchet along your upper thigh. Mort descends onto his back and tears into his feathered hide. You scramble to your feet and immediately are shoved down by another assailant. Her fist, wrapped in twisted razor vine, lacerates your cheek as she begins her onslaught. She grasps your hair and aims another strike, but before it lands, a ragged whisper sails through the air.
There cannot be two skies.
A flash of red like a bolt of pure anger, and her body crumples into a lifeless heap beside you. Moments later, Dakon, kneeling at your side, rips the stopper of a small wooden flask and pours its contents into the wounds on your face, chest, and thigh. There's a strange crawling sensation in your skin, like tendrils licking your open wounds. You look to your leg and see the motes from the flask fill where the axe had left its gash. They settle like snow and form a fleshy seal. You feel fine. Better, almost.
Thank you.
My jaw is hanging on by a thread. Could you give me a hand here?
You look to Mort, covered in blood. None of it his own, of course. He looks to be okay, for the most part. You're not sure if anything could truly hurt him.
Dakon, that was...
You look up at him and see the wet patches of blood soaking through his tunic.
You're bleeding. The flesh knows that it suffers, even when the mind does not. Quick, that flask, it helped me. The flask has been emptied to your purpose. Leave it. I will endure.
Just as he speaks, the raiment of light that had shone about him dims, and you watch as he visibly weakens. Even his blade relaxes and wilts in his hand.
No, we need to get you to a healer, soon. Oh, hold on, I have some bandages.
You quickly staunch the worst of Dakon's wounds. Having faced at least 4 of the attackers at once, you're surprised he hadn't come off worse. You yourself, rejuvenated from whatever was in that flask, feel strong and purposeful. Supporting Dakon's weight on your shoulder, you make spireward towards Ragpicker's Square.
Chief, you know where you're going?
The midwife. She can help him. Keep an eye out. We need to try and avoid any more trouble.
By the time you've limped your way to Ragpicker's Square, the sky has opened in a torrent of thick, dirty rain, soddening the mud into a weary sludge. Night has fallen, and it is almost pitch black, barring a few brief eruptions of light streaking across the thunderous clouds. Dakon's weight is almost entirely on you now. Much longer, and you worry he'd collapse. Mebet's hut falls into your view, and a warm glow emanates through the cracks of a doorway. You trudge through the trash heaps, and soaking wet, clatter through her door.
Mebeth!
She turns as you enter, and gives you a skeptical eye.
Your path brings you back here, does it, child?
Yes, we are in need of healing.
Sensing the urgency, she nods.
Very well, then.
She reaches for one of the dried herbs at her belt, snaps it off at the stalk, and grinds it in her calloused palms. Small wisps of dust and pollen rise from her hands. She mumbles to herself and blows the dust into the air. The grey pollen swirls around the room, blanketing you and your companions. You breathe deeply, and less than a moment later, you feel strangely refreshed. She gestures for you to help Dakon onto the cot, and without a word sets to work, examining his wounds and treating them with an assuring calm.
Yeah, I don't trust the Gith. I say we leave him behind.
Sure. Without him, you'd be dragging me back here by your teeth again.
Rest easy, Dakon.
Finished with her work, Mebeth tosses a bloody rag into the fire and begins washing her hands.
He'll be fine. With some rest. Not everyone heals up quite as fast as you. You ought to be more careful with your friends.
He saved us.
Aye, he's a fighter. And a practitioner, so it would seem.
She takes his empty wooden flask and fills it with a wispy grey powder from her mortar and pestle, before placing it back beside him. From a pouch in her apron, She passes you a single red teardrop, like a bead of congealed blood,
In case you get into another scrape.
and goes about tidying the mess from the commotion. In your hand, the glistening blood drop is as hard and smooth as a pearl.
I found some of these in the mortuary. What are they?
If you get yourself in a state, place it on your tongue. It'll dissolve in an instant. Stops the bleeding just as quick. Not a miracle cure, mind, but can save you from losing yourself.
You study her as she packs away the various herbs and ointments used in treating Dakon. One thing strikes you as odd. They're all simple, basic ingredients. Things you'd find in a cook's larder or perhaps a perfumery. Nothing magical as far as you can tell.
Are you a witch, Mebeth?
Mebeth scrutinizes you.
I say naught as to what I am and isn't. But what you be wanting to know so full bad for that you hound an old woman? Barking and sniffing for a juicy bit of gossip?
I want to learn about the weave. Could you teach me?
I am no teacher. No school mistress all set up to teach like them in the big fest stall. There's others somewhere, I'm sure, that'd spill the dark of it. You'd be wasting your time with old Mebeth, so you would.
I don't agree. I think you'd have a lot to teach.
Mebeth looks at you intently.
Oh, aye? Why do you want to learn such things?
Because I need power.
An ill desire. For the ladder of the art will always remind you that there's another rung just above you. And there's a bunch of people and things that'll be on it too. There'll always be someone better. And they'll learn you if you crave too much.
I understand. Will you teach me anyway?
Mebeth shakes her head.
One should make songs rather than make magic. Songs have more beauty. Magic's been made dull, commonplace, soiled by the mob of people that have tromped through it.
She squints at you.
I'll teach you. But first, you'll need to do some things for me. You hear?
Like what?
My legs aren't good for walking about, Sigil, and there's errands I'd have you run. I need you to fetch me some herbs from the market. It's downward from here, on Powers Row. Here's a sample.
She takes a black seed from a pouch and flicks it to you. It's a curious thing. As you twist it in your hand, you feel a small bite and a drop of blood oozes from your thumb. There are tiny barbs on the seed, like teeth. Mebeth snorts.
Careful with it. Show it to one of the fruit merchants at the market. They will know what herbs you seek.
Very well then. I'll return when I have the herbs.
No, you won't.
I won't.
No. First, you'll keep up here for the night and watch your friend while I get some sleep.
You wake up to the grey light that permeates the humble abode. The scent of burnt sage and drying mint hangs in the air.
You have awakened. Are you well?
Dakon, are you well?
The midwife knows suffering. Her cures are well crafted. I am fine.
Dakon, you saved us. I'm sorry I let us into that.
You saw one who showed suffering and responded in kind. Know that you made a choice, and in choosing, have begun to know yourself.
Right.
Shall we proceed?
Wait, your glaive, the light. You're a mage. Can you teach me anything of the art, Dakon?
Know that I am not a teacher in this, but know that I may serve as a guide. I do not know how one would come to be versed in the art, but when you learn, ask again, and I will share what knowledge I can.
You gaze at the small barbed seed Mebeth gave you, and gently brush your finger along its fine barbs. All right, let's go. The rain is cleared outside, and the comforting smell of petrichor masks the usual reek. Powers Row much resembles the rest of the hive. Ramshackle homes of cracked brick and rotting wood line the muddy streets. On one corner stands a butcher's shop, with slabs of greying meat impaled on rusty hooks hanging out to age. On another sits a shabby tavern, the door hanging from its hinges and a half-dozen bubbers collapsed on the pavement. In the center of it all, a busy square, nestled in the crook of a large L-shaped building, is filled with patrons, street performers and musicians, and scores of stalls fill the space, ranging from large, well-organized shop fronts to a few splintered crates filled with an assortment of mismatched goods. One merchant calls out above the rest.
Fair bargains, square trades, items at prices you won't believe. Don't waste your time with these other cheats and liars. The finest goods in all is sigil.
The peddler is quick to spot you looking at him.
Hey, Basher, get over here. Come, see what I got for you.
He winks and waves you over.
I'm looking... You won't believe the deals I got for you today. You're a smart Basher to come to me, you are.
The man breaks in, even before you can finish your sentence.
I won't cheat you like these pike and bobbers.
He motions to where the other merchants stand.
No, thank you. Farewell.
He nods, but it's clear he's not listening.
Oh, yes, sir, yes, this is some damn good stuff I got here, just look at it all. And can you believe these prices? You'd be practically stealing from me, you would.
You turn and walk away, but he calls to your back.
Oh, wait, Basher, where you going? Don't you want to see all the great deals? Get back here. You don't know what you're missing, you don't.
Arborean fire seeds. Fruits from Elysium.
Another voice catches your attention.
Sample herbs and spices that will dazzle the tongue. For a mere pittance, feast like a king.
This older merchant has a worldly look to him. Brass rings adorn large tusks that sweep out past his grey elephantine trunk, and his deep voice is gentle but confident. He stands in front of a stall filled with colourful foods and spices.
Ah, hello there. Are you ready to sample some of the most delectable treats from across the plains, my good man?
What do you have?
All manner of delicacies to delight your palate, my good man. Arborean fire seeds, garba root, Elysian pears, crimson lotus petals are just a taste of what I have at the moment. Merely 5 coppers for a taste of anything you'd like.
Sure, I'll try a garba root. He offers a small brown cube of what looks to be rubbery vegetable matter.
It is quite chewy. Do not swallow it, but spit it out when it no longer has taste.
This root, initially quite hard and difficult to chew, has a sweet, syrupy taste, which soon becomes soft and gummy, and you find yourself merrily smacking away. Eventually, though, the flavor dies off, and you spit the gooey brown wad into the gutter.
Anything else?
What are those petals? The old man takes up a large wooden bowl filled with what look like small brownish-red flakes.
These may make you a bit dizzy, my good man, so take care once you've eaten them.
You place a pinch of the petals into your mouth, and they melt on your tongue in an instant, leaving behind a bitter but not unpleasant aftertaste. Despite the Loxodon's warning, however, you don't feel the slightest bit disoriented. He seems a little disappointed to see that it has no effect on you.
Perhaps you'd try the shift spice from the very chaos of limbo. Bitopian shepherd's bread? Sea plums?
That's all for now. Actually, I had some questions. He shakes his head.
Then I advise you to seek answers elsewhere, sir. I deal only in exotic foodstuffs, spices, and herbs, and have time nor care for little else.
Mebeth, the midwife of the square, needs some herbs sprung from this seed here. Can you help me with that? The man takes the seed and looks at it critically. As he presses it between his thumb and forefinger, he winces, and a small drop of blood appears on his thumb.
Ah, this seed's got a bite on it.
I noticed that. Do you have the herb she's talking about? He can't seem to take his eye off the seed.
Lad, I don't know if there's anyone who has what your friend seeks. To be square, I've never seen such a seed before. You would need someone who cultivates seeds for help in this, for I have none.
Very well then. Where would I find such a person?
I don't know the dark of that, friend.
He hands the seed back to you.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a gardener in the hive.
Maybe Mourns for Trees could help. Farewell.
Will you not try something else? The bread of Bitopia is a favorite of mine. Or perhaps the shift spice.
The spice may taste of whatever one would like. It is little more than a matter of concentration and willpower to bend its flavor to one's whim. A child's fancy, nothing more.
I'll take some bread.
Excellent choice.
He carves you off 2 thick slices of spiced nut bread. They're very aromatic, smelling of carrots and almond. It tastes much as you had expected, but it is light and slightly sweet, leaving you hungry for more of the stuff.
Thank you. And do remember us here at Field of the Plains next time you are passing the market here in the hive.
Thank you. Farewell.
Spend your copper for the sake of your senses.
You make your way out of the busy square and head towards where you had met Mourns for Trees. Still tending to the dying trees, he turns and smiles widely upon seeing you.
Ah, my friend, you've returned. Something you wished of me?
Yes, I may need your help with something. He nods, awaiting your request. I need some herbs sprung from this seed. Can you help me? Mourns takes the seed from you and holds it up to his eye.
What an odd seed. Are those teeth along the edge? Barbs, perhaps. Where did you come by it, friend?
Old Mebeth, the midwife of the square. She needs some herbs sprung from this seed. Do you know where I could get some?
No.
Mourns for Trees continues to stare at the seed in his hand.
This is the only seed of its kind I've ever seen.
He winces, and a spot of blood glistens on his thumb.
The barbs on it are sharp indeed. Perhaps you should hold it.
So you can't help me either.
Unless you can make that one grow, I cannot. Again, I've never seen a seed of its like before, friend.
I'm not gonna wait for this damn thing to grow. I need those herbs and I need them now. If we wanted it to grow, wanted it enough, is it possible to make it sprout? His eyes are still fixed on the seed.
Perhaps. If you cared enough to see it grow, aye. Perhaps.
You focus on the seed and will it to grow. To your surprise, there is a crack, and the seed splits, twigs sprouting from its surface like fingers. Instinctively, you drop the seed, but the talon-like twigs wrap around your wrist and will not let go. What the hells? Mourns for Trees looks baffled and a little impressed.
I think the barbs on those new branches would be more than enough for what your friend needs.
I hope she can get this damn thing off me. Thanks, I guess. Before I go, I wanted to ask, any change in the trees yet?
No, not yet, friend. After what I've just seen you do, I do still have some hope, though. I speak to people every day.
Dakon, would you be willing to help?
One finds your request most intriguing. Trees in the hive, like cities in limbo. They would stand as a testament to the will of the people, not to bow to that which would surround and devour them. To take what has been thrust upon them or left behind and make good of it. I, too, will care for these trees.
Thank you, friend. Dakon?
Farewell, Mourns for Trees. With only a few hours of daylight gone, you return to Ragpicker's Square well before peak and proudly enter Old Mebeth's hut. I returned with those herbs you wanted. Now, maybe you can get this damn bramble patch off my wrist.
Is that so?
Mebeth glances at the barbs that surround your wrist.
Go on. Think it off then.
All right. You focus your mind onto the twigs tangled about your wrist. You imagine the feeling of them slipping away, and as if commanded, creaking and snapping, the black barbed branches unravel themselves from your wrist and form into a tangled ball of brush and twigs. It looks like a nest of dead black snakes. Mebeth snorts.
Think it into a picture frame or some such. Something with more structure and less angles.
Again, you force your full attention onto the branched ball. It creaks, the twigs bending and twisting until the branches have bent themselves into a small picture frame, 2 handspans on a side. Almost unconsciously, you imagine shape the barbs to the back of the frame so it can be hung from the wall easily. And, as an afterthought, you move the remaining barbs to the inside of the frame so it can be picked up by the edges. How's that? Mebeth stares at the frame for a moment and begins cackling.
Oh, square enough it is. Good work, child. Good work.
She picks up the frame and scrutinizes it.
This'll do nicely.
Is that all you wanted it for?
Aye, well, this is enough. Aye, but there was one thing I forgot to tell you to fetch when you left last time, and it'll take you back to the merchant square, it will. Look for the cloth seller, Giscall. He has some rags of mine that he was supposed to wash, and long has it been since I first asked him to do it.
You could have mentioned that before I left. All right. I'll be right back. When you return to the market, you find it considerably busier. The peak time crowd is irritable, and the presence of well-armed guards at some of the larger stalls gives everything a prickly hostility. Surrounded by a small audience upon a makeshift podium stands a passionate orator. She has a powerful voice that carries across the marketplace, enhanced further by some magics, even cutting through the noise made by the merchants and the surrounding foot traffic.
I foresee the end. A great darkness shall fall upon the city. The factions shall be cast out. 5 years hence. Damnation! Where the lady's shadow falls, so do men fall.
This grim-looking woman spares you a brief glance before returning to her speech on top of the stage.
To the mazes they shall go. Woe be to those who listen but do not heed. Even the factors themselves shall not be spared.
Her eyes have a bright silvery sheen to them, and her skin is almost golden in the peak sigil light. You can easily see how so many have become mesmerized by her and her prophecy.
You, governor, a story for Jink, eh?
You turn around and see a man looking at you with a strange, bug-eyed stare. His eyes are huge. So huge they look ready to pop out of his sockets and roll across the cobblestones. He nods eagerly as you approach, bobbing his head like a bird. And as you near him, you notice the smell of urine and feces that permeates the area around him.
Greetings.
The man sniffles, wiping his nose on his sleeve, and opens his mouth to reveal blackened, rotted gums.
Stories for coins, Sarah. Stories for coin.
His breath reeks. It smells like this man has been keeping rotten meat stored inside his mouth.
Who are you?
The man snorts, thick with phlegm.
Names. Names. Who you are. Who you are.
His head does a slight twitch every time he repeats himself.
Names. Dangerous. Dangerous.
He glances at the ground and stirs the dirt with his foot.
Dangerous. Knowing a name or being stuck with one, both's a mess of trouble.
He looks back up at you.
My name's a given name, not one asked for. Reekwind. A given name. A given name.
Is that your real name?
Not my true name. True name. A true name's a dangerous thing. Gives others power.
He stares at you with his huge eyes and wags his finger.
Keep your name secret. Keep it close. Never let it out.
What do you mean?
Names are like smells.
things can track you with them.
Reekwind coughs, his eyes almost popping out of his skull. As he does so, his cough seems to loosen his bowels, for he breaks wind loudly as if to accentuate his point.
If someone knows a true name, gives him power.
He licks his lips.
The power to hurt.
I don't know my true name. Reekwind's eyes widen. Seeing his eyeballs bulge even larger makes you uneasy.
Oh, then you are blessed. Blessed. Remain nameless, and you shall be as a spirit on the plains. Untraceable, untrackable, unseen, undiscovered.
He smacks his gums wetly.
A name chosen, a name given. It allows others to find you and hurt you.
Have you been hurt? Reekwind gives a twitching nod, then scratches himself.
Let my name slip once. Once. Only once. Only once.
His eyes film over as if the memory is painful, then glances at you uneasily.
Tell you the story I can. I will, but 3 coppers must I see.
His face splits into a smile as he says the word coppers, and his reeking breath wafts over you.
Very well, here's 3 copper.
Reekwind gets into a stance, looks left, looks right, then faces you. His face clenches, and with a grunt, he breaks wind again. The smell nearly levels you, but he takes no notice.
Cursed I walked the wards in splendor.
He stands up stiffly, nose high in the air. He saunters back and forth, nodding to invisible passers-by, then freezes, his arms akimbo.
Crossed paths with a crossed one. Had the looking of a pumpkin. His seeds, curses.
Reekwind thrusts out his belly and slicks back his hair with his filthy palm. He walks about, circling round his previous persona.
All a jumble with curses this one was.
With a sneer and a careless gesture, Reekwind tosses an invisible curse at the stuffy persona.
Knew my name, let it slip I had. All it took it all.
He stiffens up again, inhaling deeply, then suddenly crumbles and exhales, filling the air with his foul, reeking breath.
Cursed with stenches, smells, excrement. Came here to tell tales. All good for now. Now, Reekwind is the name. Given name. Given name.
I see. I have some questions.
Questions.
Reekwind hunches over, regarding you warily with his huge eyes.
Answers.
Tell me about the hive.
The hive. The hive. A tale I can tell. A tale I can tell. I will. But another 3 coppers must I see.
He smacks his gums together and snorts like a pig.
Fine. Spyward.
He points to his left, at the charred alley in the distance.
An alley of dangerous angles.
He bends his limbs in a twisted parody of one of the skeletal buildings.
Not always angled, not always burned and charred. Once alive, no longer. Flames, fire.
He flings his hands up in the air and waves them to simulate flames.
The alley burned. Great smoke, ash everywhere. In the end, only skeletons of buildings left. Bones of dead buildings, Angles everywhere, angles.
He hunches forward, his voice a whisper.
Dangerous now. Bad men have set up their kip there.
He bows and breaks wind in quick spurts like a bugle blowing.
That is the tale of how a street becomes an alley of dangerous angles.
How did the fire start? He makes a semicircle over his heart.
A man made it so. A beast made it so. A man whom even fiends admire. Who? A sorcerer's tale filled with madness, sadness, burning and yearning. A tale I can tell. A tale I can tell. I will. But 3 coppers must I see.
Without hesitation, you cross his palms with another 3 coppers. He hisses and cackles in a way that reminds you of a fire burning.
A dangerous tale. A dangerous tale. A sorcerer there was. No simple hedge wizard this, but a mage of power.
Reekwind brings his hands together reverently, a wicked smile across his face.
He burned with the art, and the art burned him. The name given him was Ignis, a name respected, then feared, then hated, then punished.
Reekwind gives a rattling wheeze, then claws at the air and hisses, apparently imitating Ignis.
Taught by one of the last great magi Ignis was, and as an apprentice, Ignis learned much, and nothing at the same time.
He shakes his head.
In his heart, his coal-black heart, a fire blazed. It burned, and it hungered.
He claws at his chest as if in pain.
As it hungered, Ignis hungered. It was his wish to see the plains burn.
Reekwind hunches down and begins to slowly stalk in the direction of the alley, a mad grin on his face.
In the night, Ignis came to the alley that was to be the Alley of Angles, and the fire in his eyes, the fire in his heart, both he let out.
He points at the alley and flings his arms in the air, silently screaming and laughing at the same time.
Flesh ran like wax, people like candles, and Ignis laughed.
Reekwind crumples to the ground, his body racked with imagined pain.
An evil was done, and forgotten not.
He stands up, hunches over, looks left, looks right, and starts mumbling, as if secretly in conference with someone.
Something was to be done.
He stands up, stiffly, his face resolute.
A punishment was decided. All the hedge wizards, midwives, rune tellers, copper-pinching witches, all manner of magelings, they came. All, even those with the smallest trace of the art, to punish Ignis. Separately, they were flies.
He makes a buzzing noise between his rotten gums.
Together, dangerous.
He hums and raises his hands.
Caught Ignis, granted his wish.
He swirls his hands as if casting a spell.
He wished to burn. They granted it, using his own desire to fuel the casting. They made his body a door to the plane of fire. They intended to kill him. Failed.
Reekwind breaks wind again, as if to accentuate the failure of the wizards.
Ignis lived. Only slept. Blanket of flames. Flames turned in his sleep as he burned. Never happier. Never happier.
He shuts his eyes, wraps his arms around himself, and turns slowly.
Burning. Ever burning.
Suddenly, his eyes snap open.
One day he will wake, and then the plains shall burn.
An unfortunate tale. You know much about this place. Do you know anything about Farad? Preempting his toll, you hand him 3 more coppers. Reekwind suddenly hunches over and leers at you. He walks around you for a moment, dragging his left leg as if lame.
A king,
A noble tale. A noble tale. Once, a man of respect, Farad was. A man of goals and position. All became nothing. Nothing turned to air.
Requin squints and breaks wind, filling the air with a gut-churning smell.
Turned to air and stink. A liar, a cheater, a man who twisted law, Farad was.
He hunches over, as if writing at his desk, then suddenly stops, afraid.
Then, one day, he found that he had twisted himself. Such a liar had he become that when he died, he was to go to a horrible place.
Requin shakes his head sadly, hunches over again, and looks wildly in all directions.
Farad would not accept it. Would not. He had cheated others. He would cheat his fate too. He read, dug in books, and consulted seers.
Requin stalks back and forth, his hand over his eyes, as if staring off into the distance.
And they told him that only in trash could he find that which would let him cheat his fate. Perhaps they lied.
Requin stands up stiffly and begins to fling off imaginary clothes. With every piece of clothing he throws away, he becomes more hunched.
Farad threw away his position, his goals, and took up a new title.
He claws at his rags, shaking them,
and became a king of rags. He would rule the trash, have his subjects search it all, and find that which he needed.
He shakes his head.
He looks, even now.
Do you know where I could find him? Requin shakes his head again, slowly.
He lives amongst rags and trash. There you will find him.
Find him. I've heard enough. Thank you. Farewell, Requind. While browsing the market, searching for Giscol, the washcloth, a clear, youthful voice rings out above the crowd.
Plates, jugs, cups, tankards, drink from the goblets of the finest lords.
A young woman is smiling and beckoning in all passers-by as she calls out the virtues of her goods. Upon seeing you, she waves you over as if you were a treasured guest.
What are you selling here? I sell plates, cups, jugs, tankards, cutlery and the like. All of quality, sir. The finest.
She steps back and lifts the lid of the crate on the wagon behind her.
Please, look over my goods. My name is Marilyn. Should you have any questions, feel free to ask.
You step close and peer into the crate. The goods all look to be of varying degrees of quality, but some of it appears quite nice. As you're looking them over, she presses up against you.
See anything you like, sir?
Where does this all come from? She flashes a wicked grin.
My lovers are all burglars, sir. These goods are pilfered from the homes of Sigel's nobles.
Upon seeing your expression, she laughs sweetly.
A jest, sir, merely. My fathers are both tinkers. These are wares which are discarded from the nobles' manors and made good by them once more.
I see. I'm actually not looking for anything.
Sir, but wait. Are you sure there's nothing you need?
She puts a hand on your forearm. Her touch is as light as a feather.
Surely something for your own home? Or a gift?
Well, that is a nice plate right there.
Oh, what, sir? This one? Here?
No, wait, this is ridiculous. I need no plates. I'm looking for Giscol. She looks sad, and slowly she lowers the lid of the crate.
Sorry, sir. I don't mean to push. I must sell what I can before the day is done. For my family is large and hungry. I know Giscol. You'll find him a few stalls down. You won't miss him. He's colourful, to say the least.
Thank you. Farewell.
Plates, jugs, cups, tanks.
True enough, a few stalls over, you see a spindly-looking merchant with a brush of grey and red stubble across his chin. He wears several layers of brightly coloured robes, so much so that he looks like a flag with arms and legs. He is shaking slightly as you watch.
Are you Giscol?
I, Giscol.
He bows and spreads his trembling hands. As he does, you notice his hands and forearms are a twisted mass of black scar tissue, as if they were once badly burned.
How did you hurt your hands?
Giscol doesn't seem to have heard you. He answers only with his spiel.
Giscol, buy cloth, sell cloth, wash cloth, mend cloth, and
He gestures at his layers of clothing with his shaking hands.
wear cloth.
I asked, how did you hurt your hands?
Giscol's voice breaks.
Giscol, buy cloth, sell cloth, wash cloth, mend cloth.
He gestures at himself again, but his hands are shaking so badly that he cannot even finish.
And
Never mind. Look, I'm here to pick up someone's wash. Mebeth, the midwife. Ragpicker's Square?
Giscol blinks.
wash cloth.
Yes, Mebeth. Ragpicker's Square.
Rag picker?
He taps his fingers as if counting.
I know. I remember.
He holds up a trembling finger, as if telling you to wait. Then moments later comes back with a flattened mass of green rags, thin as paper, yet so stiff they look like they could double as wooden boards. The rags are so caked with a greenish lime starch that they look like it would take years of soaking to relax them.
How many times did you clean these?
Giscol, wash cloth, starch cloth, every 5th day. Wash cloth, starch cloth, every 5th day.
His eyes flicker.
Giscol, wash many years. Always starch cloth on 5th day. Giscol's ritual.
But they're ruined.
Wash cloth is Giscol's ritual. Must starch cloth every 5th day.
He speaks as if reciting an incantation.
What's the point of doing it every 5 days when they don't need... never mind. Just hand them over.
He nods and hands you the rags.
Give cloth.
They're heavy. It's like carrying an armload of bricks.
I'll take them back to Mebeth now. Take care, Giscol.
You leave the man to his rituals, and once again head back towards Ragpicker's Square.
Hey, Chief. You sure this is all legit? We're running around like errand boys here. I know. I want to see this through, but there's not much more I can take of this fetching. To know the art requires more than a little patience. This is all you were tasked with to begin your instruction. Then you have been blessed by a generous tutor.
All right, Dakon, I get it. Back in Ragpicker's Square, Mebeth is outside her hut, sweeping the slatted path at the doorway. She's humming gently to herself.
You've returned, child.
I brought you wash. I think Giscol was a little heavy on the cleaning ritual, though.
She takes the stacks of starched green rags from you, and she examines them.
At least they won't tear. Or bend.
What was with that cloth merchant? His hands were all scarred, and he seemed troubled.
Mebeth is still turning the cloth over in her hands, tapping it with a finger.
Well, child, sometimes one burns with the art, and other times the art just burns you.
Is that what happened to him?
Mayhap. There's some for who using the art is like breathing. They strolls about with pointy hats and stinkweed pipes. Then there's edge wizards and plain touch travellers and fortune casters and half-seers and midwives who flicker with the art. Them have a harder time of it.
And Giscol was one of them.
Aye, so to speak. In some ways, he's no different now than he was. Addicted to habit and ritual, he was.
She enters her hut and sets down the stiff rags. They clunk as she places them on the floor.
Aye now. There's one last thing I need from you, child.
This better not involve me going back to the market, Mebeth.
Oh, and if it does, child?
Mebeth draws herself up and she glares at you. Even at full height, her head barely meets your sternum.
Never mind. What do you need?
Only this. I need some inks for scribing some ingredients in one of my cookery books. I'll need you to fetch some from one of the merchants. Kosajai be her name.
All right, then. I'm off. Farewell.
Fresh fish!
Back at the marketplace, it's not hard to find the fishmonger.
Fresh fish heads!
This toothless old crone reeks of fish and brine. Spying your approach, she gives you a wide, pink smile.
Fish, my child? Fish heads, mayhap?
Child? Hardly.
Oh, yes, yes. But a child you are to my years. Youngster.
I believe you're mistaken. Take a closer look. She shuffles up to you. The fish stink is nearly overpowering. The old woman squints at your face first, frowning, and then into your eyes. Only then does she recoil in surprise.
Oh, my. How many years have those eyes seen?
I do not know. How many do you think?
Don't know. Too many, I'd say, but no matter.
She leans close to whisper in your ear.
It won't do to rattle the passers-by. Let's keep it our little secret. So, fish, my child?
She pokes you in the belly. What are you offering exactly?
Why, fish, my silly child. Fish of all sorts, and fish heads for those too short of jink for the whole ones. Teeny, tiny fish heads.
Where do the fish come from?
They're brought to Sigil from all over the plains, my boy. Would you like some? I sell only the heads, should you be short on jink.
Mebeth said you sell ink. She sent me to purchase some.
Ink? Nay, sir, I sells no ink. I just sells fish.
Are you sure? Mebeth, the midwife in Ragpicker's Square, mentioned you specifically.
Well, Cossajai was me dam's name and me grandmum's name, so it could be any of us. But they're both in the dead book, so only this Cossajai matters. No idea what she's on about. A midwife in the Pickers Square, you say?
She thinks for a moment.
No, don't know her, I don't.
So, you don't have any ink? Well, I can't say that's much of a surprise. I swear, Mebeth is having me run round in circles.
Now, hold on. Your midwife friend's not all wrong. I know how to get the ink. But it may not be the ink you're looking for. The ink I'm thinking of bleeds from the gilts of the Bragota fin, it does.
She frowns.
Aye. Thing is, that fish is not for eating. It's got a horrible taste, scalds the tongue. You can ask Miriam. She pitches her fish sale down the street away.
She points downwards towards a street bending off to the corner.
She might have one of them fish you needs on her pole.
I'll go seek her out then. Farewell.
Fishes!
You head through the market and down the street towards a quieter alley just off the main square. The stalls here are far less elaborate, with a makeshift feel. You see an elderly woman standing silently by the wall, staring off into the distance. She seems to be unconcerned with the flow of traffic around her and clutches a wooden pole from which dozens of small fish are dangling. Greetings.
Oh, hello, sir.
She squints at you for a moment, trying to discern your identity.
Oh my, here I was thinking you were one of me regular customers.
She proffers a fish pole.
Tuna, sir? Mackerel? Sea cucumber?
No fish, thanks. I had some questions. Her mouth presses down into a tight-lipped frown, and she stares off over your shoulder. You look behind you to see what she's staring at, and can see nothing of interest. As you turn back to her, you catch her looking at you. She quickly looks away, resuming her staring off into the distance once more. Have you heard of a Bragota fin? I was told it bleeds ink from its gills. She blinks, then nods.
Aye, that fish. That fish is a strange one. It is. Not many have heard of it unless want to eat it. Difficult to kill, and even in death it still seems to live. Not many want to latch their teeth around something that still writhes.
Do you have one?
Aye, but the ink, you need something to carry it in. Have you a bowl or a cup, perchance?
Or a tankard. Maybe one of the merchants is selling one. Wait one moment, I'll be right back. Eat from the place settings of noblemen. Brass plates, tin cups, pewter tankards. Oh, hello again, sir. You changed your mind about that plate? Maybe. I need something to hold ink in. Do you have a tankard? Or a goblet for sale.
Oh, yeah. Many kinds. They range in price from a few coppers to several hundred.
Actually, I'm looking for the cheapest one you have. She raises an eyebrow, then reaches into a crate at her side and throws a battered-looking tankard to you. It is covered in dents, and its handle looks like it is about to fall off. This one looks like it was used on someone's skull. She smiles slightly. It'll do fine. You reach into your coin pouch and rummage for some coppers.
No. You just take it. You look pretty desperate.
Thanks. And farewell. You hurry back down the alley towards Miram once again.
We meet again, sir.
I brought a tankard. Can I get the ink from the fish in this? She nods and plucks a fish from a pole. It twitches as she grabs it, then starts lashing about as she begins to twist it like a rag. She wrings it until a bluish-black ichor begins to trickle from the fish's gills. When your tankard is almost full, she relaxes her grip and throws the twitching fish into a sack at her side. Thank you. As you turn to leave, you hear a sigh of relief from Miram behind you. You turn back to confront her.
Oh, you have returned.
Yes, I had some more questions. Her mouth presses down into the same tight-lipped frown, and again, she stares off over your shoulder. Can you tell me about this area? She shakes her head, mouth closed tightly, and continues to look over your shoulder. Each time you try to catch a glance of what she might be looking at, you turn back to find her staring at you for the briefest of moments. But what? Do I look familiar to you?
Goodness, no.
She pauses for a moment.
You do.
Have you seen me before then?
I think you or a man with your very likeness, sir. 'Twas so long ago.
Tell me.
Well, sir, you see, my sight's not so good now. 'Twasn't back then, neither. But I thought I saw you walking past with a small group trailing along behind you.
What did these people look like?
It's hard to say, sir. 'Twas so long ago. And you walked by so quick-like. But I remember now the way you held your head up. There was a woman following you, trying to stop you, to get you to turn around, speak to her. But you pushed her away.
What happened then?
Beautiful woman she was. Looked so sad, so angry all at once. She stood there for a moment, then followed along behind you just the same, hustling to catch up.
You had said there was a group. Who else was there?
There was at least 2 other gentlemen with you, sir. The only one I remember too clearly, though, was tall, thin. Reeked of bub, he did. I smelled him from across the way. Looked like he hadn't bathed in ages, too. He followed you close, he did, and never said a word. Acted like the woman wasn't even there, even when she bumped against him, trying to stop you. That's all I remember, sir.
You are silent for a moment. Then you reach into your coin pouch and pull out a single silver piece. You're almost entirely out of commons. And hand it to Miram without a word.
Oh my! Why, thank you, sir, most kindly. May the lady's shadow pass you over.
Thanks. Farewell. When you return to Ragpicker's Square, weaves of fragrant grey smoke spool like twine out of the midwife's open door. Mebeth is tugging at the mass of green, starched rags you brought from Giscol. She seems to be purposely fraying the edges, as if to peel them apart somehow. When she hears you approach, she turns.
Hi, child.
Here's that ink you wanted. Mebeth takes the tankard of ink from you and sniffs it.
Prime ink. Oh, fresh it is. Hi.
She nods at you.
You've done well, child. All I've asked. Now, I ask you again. After all you've seen, do you still want to learn the art?
Yes. After all, The guiding goal of your errands was to test my persistence, was it not? Mebeth smiles, nodding.
Yes, mayhap, child, mayhap.
And that's not all. You knew who I had to see to accomplish each errand, didn't you? Mebeth nods again, slower this time.
Mayhap, child, mayhap. If and so, what did your senses tell you about them?
Mourns for trees showed me that my beliefs affect the world around me. Giscol taught me that ritual is a wasted effort if the purpose of the ritual is ignored. Miriam taught me that no matter how much I think I know, there's still much I can learn from another's eyes. Mebeth is silent for a moment. She walks slowly over to you and touches you on the cheek.
Oh, child. You will be a master sorcerer one day, ye will. You have the knowing of it yet. You've come to old Mebeth for help, you have. What could a midwife teach such a one?
Much, Mebeth. I want to learn all you have to teach.
So you'll walk the path, then?
Mebeth pauses.
Oh. Well, first things firstly, just having the knack for the art isn't enough. You need some means of giving it focus, usually spells. The spells are usually in a book, so the art demands you have a spell book, or it's like a four you can cast spells. Can you read?
Yes.
Then let's test it. Can you read this?
Mebeth draws forth a small tattered card. It looks like a recipe. Then, as you try to read the text, the writing on the card swims before your eyes, each symbol twisting out of focus whenever you try and read it. Almost instinctively, you relax your eyes, allowing them to take in the page all at once, and the symbols suddenly bleed together. The recipe lists measurements, ingredients, but there's more to it. This is a minor divination, isn't it? It looks like it's a spell that allows the user to see the nature of an item, to see whether it's enchanted or not. Mebeth's eyes widen.
Who are you to test old Mebeth so? Are you some fiend?
No. Well, not to my knowledge. What's wrong?
Well, not expecting it, was I?
She nods at the recipe and plucks it out of your hand.
What you see, it's written in the language of the art. If you're not a Mageling yet, it should be a swirl, jumble, a mishmash.
She snaps a finger.
Yet, clear as crystal, you plucked the sense of it right up. Mayhap you tell old Mebeth why that is?
I don't really know. I just knew what it said. Perhaps I knew once before, but forgot, and seeing the symbols jarred my memory.
Or else a natural gift you may have. Oh, no matter, no matter. You've just shaved seasons off of your learning, you have. And I've been looking for someone to handle the chores round here, I had.
If you need help with anything around here, you can still ask. It's the least I can do in exchange for you teaching me.
No. Don't worry yourself about that.
She frowns.
Well, you can read spells well enough, but spells are no good to you without a book to put them in.
Do you have one? Mebeth glances around the hut and catches sight of the black barbed picture frame you made. She picks it up carefully and studies it.
This'll do.
That thing, it's just a frame.
But so are you, child.
Still holding the frame, she picks up one of the starched rags you got from Giscol. With a yank, she pulls off the greenish film, and it flutters in the air like a wispy bit of cloth.
Whatever Giscol uses in the wash, it works better than curing, stretching, and stoning does on a normal rag. Can't afford parchment, I can't.
Parchment? She takes the starchy film and pulls it over the black barbed frame, latching the rag's edges onto the hooks around the frame until it looks like a small greenish-black painter's canvas.
It's missing something.
Well, it needs something painted on it. She nods.
Aye. Or written on it.
She takes the tankard of ink and dips in one of her long fingernails and draws it out, mumbling to herself. She begins to scratch symbols onto the frame one by one as she mumbles. After several minutes, she stands triumphantly, drying her ink-stained fingernail on her robe.
All's done.
She tilts her head, regarding the strange framed text in front of her.
A cover for your spell book it is. Take it. Inside are your recipes, your spells, if you will. As long as they sit in the book, though, they're just words.
She taps her head.
The art demands you pluck the magic out of the book and put them in your attic, your head, before you can tap their power.
Go on.
You put them in your attic by studying them, memorising them. You usually need to rest first before you can do this, though. Any questions?
No, Mebeth.
Oh, no questions, eh? Oh, well, now you should have questions. You know all's about how to memorise spells, do you? You're a sharp one. You sure don't need any more of Mebeth's words all gobbling up your precious time. Oh, you're a master sorcerer already.
Forgive me, Mebeth. I meant no questions on what you'd said. Please, explain how to memorize spells.
All right, then. Here's the dark of how you memorise the spells. Pick the spells you want to stick in your head from your spell book afore you goes to sleep. When you wake in the morn, they'll be buzzing in your head like flies, ready to be let out.
And then I can cast those spells as I like.
It depends on the spell. Some's easier than others. You can cast only one, mayhap two more complicated spells afore needing to rest again. As a tiny flitting mageling, there isn't much room in your attic. Now keep your eyes and ears out for learning. Even common folks might have some minor magics to teach. There's also scrolls, recipes, books, and even some stranger items that have spells inscribed on them. If you find one, study it close and inscribe the dark of it into your book if you want it. What's to be written is down to you. The language of the art can appear different for every one of us. It's the meaning that does it.
Mebeth rummages in her robe and pulls forth 3 small recipes which she passes to you.
For now, you should copy these into your book so they can go into your attic as soon as possible.
Thanks, Mebeth.
Oh wait, there's more.
Mebeth fishes a tiny bundle of black cloth from her apron and unrolls it, producing a pair of amber earrings.
These will protect you on your travels, child. I no longer wear them myself, so go ahead and take them.
In your hand, they feel slightly warm to the touch.
Hardened sap, a razor vine. Holds enchantments better than silver or gold.
Mebeth, I have nothing to give you in return.
Nonsense! This is a gift. When you've a little more of the plains in you, you can repay me by buying some of my cures and trinkets.
What do you sell here, Mebeth?
I sell rags and herbs, cures and charms and mixes and poultices and all that wash. Also, if you find a queer item you can't figure out, bring it to Mebeth. No promises, child, but mayhap I can riddle out what it is.
I found this scrap of armor. I think it has some enchantment, but I'm not exactly sure what. You unwrap the small, palm-sized plate of polished bronze you took from the mortuary guardian. Mebeth eyes you curiously and examines the piece.
Oh, you could invoke an enchantment from this. Hardens your skin, making it as tough as iron mail. But more than that, we may be able to glean some magics from it to copy into your spell book.
She sets the plate on a small table and thrusts the tankard of ink at you.
Go on then. Let's see how you do.
After minutes of scrutinizing the strange symbols, you slowly begin scratching an inscription onto a fresh skein of the starchy film. Mebeth watches in silence. As you finish your scrivening, she raises her brow.
A little scratchy on the quill work. No room for mistakes in this. But I'm impressed. You've done more in a day than many take years, child.
A sad look draws across her face. Mebeth, it is credit to the teacher that the student has learned it all.
Flatterer. Tell you what, one small boon you could gift me. I could make coin from peddling such items.
She takes up the ruined piece of armor.
Bring in more like this, and in return, I'll gift you some of my thingies that you may find more use in.
She proceeds to lead you around her hut, showing you the various artifacts and talismans, some of her own making, others traded from hedge wizards and spell swords who found their way to Sigil. Twisted knots, desiccated animals, dried out bones to ward you from harm, recipes of arcane cantrips, and manuals on the brewing of poisons. You find indeed that you are already carrying objects of some minor potential. A charred claw from an abyssal fiend that, when ground down and rubbed on the skin, protects the user from heat and flames. a putrid rat tail that focuses your mind and reflexes, and the small triangle-shaped earring from the folded note you found in the zombie's mouth.
This child holds a blessing from one of the gods of wealth on some backwater prime world. A cheery trinket usually given as a token of payment for when travelling the plains.
She places a tiny blue crystal into your palm.
Here, swallow this.
You eye her suspiciously.
Go on! Or have I lost your trust now, you arrival mageling?
When you place the crystal into your mouth, it immediately dissolves, leaving behind an acrid taste. A few moments later, a searing pain rushes to your forehead, dropping you to your knees. Thousands of voices fill your mind. Your vision blurs. You can just about see Mebeth calmly holding a finger up to her mouth. You try to focus the sound, bringing it down to a whisper. And gradually, the voices subdue to a hushed static.
Filled with the entire resource library of the Charon School of Mages. Know-it-alls. Quickly, the effects are fleeting.
She thrusts the earring in front of you, and right away you simply know to cup the earring in your hands and whisper the word copper. Suddenly, it deforms into a stream of bright copper pieces that spill from your hands to the floor. Mebeth claps and giggles with a delight you hadn't seen in her yet.
Oh, all right, child. Don't tarry here any longer.
She gathers the coins and hands them to you in a brand new velvet pouch.
One such as you has other ways to spend one's time rather than hang off old Mebeth's apron.
Now come on, Mebeth. You're not old.
Ye flatterer. Your tongue is so lined with silver it'd shame about so. Get ye hence.
Thanks for everything, Mebeth.
You can thank me by not playing the addle cove with what you've learned. The art's damned many a fool who sought to bend it in ways the art weren't meant to bend. Now, get along with you.
Farewell. Despite the day's constant back and forth, you are filled with a charged vigor. Your mind races with esoteric symbols and incantations. Above you, the Sigil sky bleeds once again to a murky black. Thick smog is streaming over from the nearby smokestacks, masking much of the light that flickers from the opposing wards above. At a guess, you have an hour at most before anti-peak, the city's darkest moments.
What's this?
As before, rummaging in the trash beneath the statue, you see the hunched figure of Nod, the collector, muttering to himself as he goes about his scavenging. The velvet pouch from Mebeth's hut now contains about the same value of coin Amory's entrusted you to pass on to him. You jog down the mounds of junk and call out to the lone collector.
Someone comes to speak to Nod.
Nod, I spoke to your sister, Amory's.
You did? Oh, Nod's so happy. He is. How's Nod's sister? Tell him of Amory's. Tell Nod, please.
His excitement sets off a long series of hacking coughs. When he can finally speak again, he asks,
Is Nod's sister still pretty? So pretty?
Yes, she is. She's a prostitute now in the Hive. She is doing well and is worried for you.
Nod's so pleased to know his sister is all right.
He looks as if he's going to cry for a moment, then swallows hard.
Anything more? Anything more she said for Nod to hears?
Yes. She wanted you to have these coins. She will also visit you as soon as she can find the time. Nod's head stops nodding abruptly, and his jaw drops as you hand him the bag filled with about 100 copper commons. Beneath the dirt brown hood, his eyes gleam with joy.
Such wonderful news. It is good, wonderful news. Not thanks you, and thanks you again, and thanks you 1,000 times more.
Glad I could help. Farewell, Nod. Mort's subtle smile speaks of his quiet approval. Dakon's face is unmoved. He walks off towards the hive in silence.
Dakon, what is your will?
My will is that we would speak with one another. You said that once I had begun my studies in the art, you would share what you can. Your manipulation of the weave is very different to how Mebeth described. Are you still willing in this?
Know that the way of the people is not the same as the art you have come to know. It is not the energy of the weave that gives us strength. It is knowing the self that gives us strength. The teachings of Zerthamon speak of such things.
Well, would you teach me the way of Zerthamon, Dakon?
Do you know what you have asked?
The texture of Dakon's glaive begins to shift and flow until it becomes as stone.
To walk the path of Zerthamon, you must know of the people. The knowing of such things by one not of the people is a difficult matter. There are those not of the people who have heard the way of Zerthamon, but they do not know the way.
Dakon, I want to know of the people, and know Zerthamon's teachings. I believe there is wisdom to be learned in such things.
Know that I have heard your words, and I shall test them. To learn, you must know the people. To know the people, you must know the unbroken circle of Zerthamon.
Dakon holds up the stone disc in his possession, and his spider-like fingers hook into its sides. There is a click, and the plates of the circle slide into a new configuration. He reverses the motion, sealing the stone, then carefully places it in your palm and closes your fingers firmly about it.
Know the first circle of Zerthamon is open to you. Study it. Then I will hear your words.
Very well. As you begin to approach the hive, the skies begin to rumble. The roiling clouds have formed a muddy, sludge-like ceiling above you. As you look up, a few wayward drops fall into your eyes.
It's like vinegar.
Sulphurous smoke belching from the nearby forges has combined with the clouds. Suddenly, they break, and thick sheets of acid rain lash down in a heavy torrent.
The lady shower. Hey, Chief. You stick around in this long enough, you'll start to look like me. Not that that's a bad thing, of course.
Quickly, under here.
Dakon drags you into the shelter of an underpass between the leaning buildings lining the street. Cramped into this hideaway with you is a shaggy-haired tiefling with short, sharp horns protruding from his forehead. His chest is covered by patchwork armor adorned with large spikes, and a long, elegant knife hangs at his side. He's picking his teeth with what appears to be a tiny metal fork, and you notice he is missing his right ear.
Greetings.
He regards you coolly from the damp shadows, as if sizing you up.
I said, greetings.
What's the matter? Your other ear not working? The one-eared tiefling scowls at you threateningly.
Pike off, Burke, or I'll have your guts for garters.
Just making conversation while we wait out the storm. I say, how did you lose that ear? His right hand drifts to the hilt of his knife.
What did you just say?
Just curious. Behind every scar is a good tale. As you can see, I speak from experience.
Aye, it do look as though you've seen your share of slashing.
He manages a small chuckle as he runs his fingers across the scars on the side of his head.
At least you still have both your ears.
You still haven't told me what happened.
Fine. I suppose a little story wouldn't hurt past the time. A while back, I bobbed an old petitioner's sod.
His face takes on a sullen expression as he begins to relate the tale.
The silly blighter wouldn't go along with it.
Go on.
So as to get rough with the old sod. and while we were scrapping, he gets hold of me ear and bites it clean off.
Then what happened?
Well, what do you think happened? The balmy sod bit me ear off, so I thumped his skull and put him in the dead book. I'm right sorry I did too.
He glances around nervously before continuing.
I think his spirit's haunting me.
Haunting you? He nods and quickly traces a semicircle over his heart.
Aye, 'tis true. Sometimes I hear his voice in my head, cursing and telling me how he's waiting for me. Ugh, scares the pants off me, it does.
Well, maybe I can help you lay his spirit to rest. Stop him from haunting you. He takes a step back from you and cocks his head to one side.
Oh, you can do that? How?
Give me what you stole from him and I'll see to it that he goes away.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Beck.
He glares at you. Look, why don't you come clean while you still have one good ear left?
A corpse, a skull, and an old man. Very funny. I suggest you get your mangled carcass out of my sight before I carve my name into you.
Certainly. Just give me the fork you stole from him and I'll be on my way. With a flash of movement too quick to follow, he whips his knife from its sheath and begins waving it before you.
Why you come and take it from me, Beck?
If that's the way you want to play it.
Oh, you sure do have a sharp tongue. I think I'll just cut it out and feed it to you.
Let's dance. He lunges at you, knife leading the way. You swipe the blade aside, gashing open your wrist, and drive your elbow towards his chin. With your weight in the front foot, however, he swipes his leg under yours, sending your knee cracking into the cobbled path. He goes to slash again, but before the strike can land, a flash of blue from Dakon's glaive, and the blade clatters to the floor, streaked in blood, a few severed fingers rolling by its side. You feel the sting from the cut in your arm, your blood mingling with the acid rain, your eyes burning with vicious power. You focus the pain on the pools about you, and suddenly they begin to bubble and hiss. With ferocious speed, you grab his bleeding hand and thrust the sheared knuckles into the corrosive puddle. Give me the damned fork, or it'll be the whole hand. He releases the fork from his good hand, and you tighten your grip. Your fingernails, sharp with fury, digging into the tiefling's wrist. He tries desperately to push away from you. Reluctantly, you release him.
Bleeding hells.
He clambers to his feet and flees, yelping into the storm.
It's a bear to all of you. Whoa, Chief. You knew you could do that?
I don't know.
Let me know next time someone pisses you off. That way I can keep my distance.
I did warn him. You pick up the small steel fork. This is definitely no prize piece of cutlery. Its steel finish is scratched and bent, and its tines are crusted with dirt.
Remind me why you wanted this fork.
This fork pays for our bed tonight. When the rain subsides, you find your route back to Arlo's flophouse. A welcome familiarity despite its odor and lack of privacy. A few patrons make an attempt at sleep, while others drain their tankards of stale mead. Standing apart from the rest is the man you were looking for.
Fork? Fork?
As you approach,
Fork?
Nestor stops his frantic pacing and glances at you nervously.
Fork? 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 Can't go home without my fork.
Is this the fork you speak of? He hastily snatches it from you.
My fork! Fork! My fork! 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 Ooh, ooh.
He hops up and down excitedly, waving the fork back and forth in an elaborate pattern above his head, as if he were performing some sort of ritual. Then, with a gentle flick, the fork rings a delicate note.
Now I can go home. Farewell. Ooh, ooh.
Nestor turns to leave. Then, as if struck with some afterthought, he spins around and hands you a scrap of something soft and rubbery. The severed ear. He takes a step back, and his body starts to dissolve into a mist of grey before disappearing entirely. Upon closer examination, you notice that there is an earring still dangling from the rotting piece of flesh in your hand. It is made from polished obsidian. Despite the smoothness of its surface, it reflects no light whatsoever. In fact, the black gem this earring is made from seems to absorb light, drawing shadows in from the area around it.
So, Nestor's gone home, eh? Maybe the old sod wasn't so balmy after all.
He gives you a hearty slap on the back.
Now, maybe we can all get some rest round here. Feel free to set up Kip here any time, Cutter.
There any room for us now?
Of course. You bloods can nab any bunk that's free.
Day 4. Hour 1 after Annie Peak. I'm beginning to feel more familiar in the hive, and each new day uncovers more of my memories. I've met Dakon, a Githzerai warrior. He insisted on joining us in our travels, yet there's an unwillingness to his behavior that I cannot fathom. His skill with that glaive alone, however, makes him more than welcome company, and I feel there is much more I could learn from him in time. Mebeth, the midwife, has begun my training in the art, the manipulation of the weave, although it seems that I already hold much of this knowledge within me. If I focus my thoughts, I am able to tap into powers that I do not yet wholly understand. I need to reach Farad, but I'm compelled to seek out these experiences and learn what I can. Thank you for listening to Planescape Torment, the unofficial audio series, a RevocerGM production. To support the show and those involved, please consider subscribing to our Patreon or donating via our Ko-fi page. Links to both are in the description.